Luis Gonzalez. I work for Congressman Dean Phillips. I'm the one that helps run the Service Academy nomination process for the congressman. I wanted to welcome everyone here this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're super excited to give the students and family members the information on how you can receive a nomination from the congressman. So without further ado, Congressman Dean Phillips.
Thank you, Luis, and good evening, everybody, students and family, to my wonderful staff on the Zoom right now, and also to the Academy representatives from whom you're going to hear momentarily. And let me start by thanking all of you, heartfelt gratitude for even considering what I consider to be the most important responsibility of being an American, which is to serve our country in some capacity. And at your ages and stage of life, to make the decision to pursue an education at one of our academies and join our armed forces in some capacity is an extraordinary gesture of patriotism and affection for our country at a time we really need you. And I want to make that really clear because you can change the world in magnificent ways. We need the best and brightest to serve our country in public service, our military, police and fire, running for office, teachers, helping one another. And I believe the best path to peace is through a very strong national defense. And that's why you're signing up for, I think, the most important work imaginable and most important responsibility of being an American. It's very personal to me. I lost my father in the Vietnam War. I'm a Gold Star son. We take veterans affairs very seriously in our office. Luis, from whom you just heard, who coordinates this wonderful program, is a veteran himself, an extraordinary one at that. And some of the most successful people I've ever met in my life in the public sector and the private sector began their careers in the military, many of them at our service academies. So I want to thank you. No matter what your politics are, I want to let you know it doesn't matter one bit. And as you pursue your paths in our military, perhaps beyond in the private sector, please consider the most important fight of your lifetimes, the one to heal our country, which right now is precarious because of divisions that I think are both preventable but also solvable with people like you of all different politics and backgrounds and circumstances coming together to protect and defend and to celebrate the most extraordinary experiment in democracy in world history. So without taking any more of your time, I just want you to know that you will be the last cohort that I nominate to our service academies because my tenure in Congress is coming to a conclusion in January. And I cannot wait, though, to be a resource to all of you, to see where your careers go, and most importantly, heartfelt gratitude for doing what I wish more Americans would do at any stage in their lives. So with that, thank you. We have wonderful representatives from the academies who are going to share with you a bunch of information. Luis Gonzalez from my office coordinates this program, a veteran himself. He's always available to answer questions. And our website, of course, will be a wonderful warehouse of information describing this, the journey and answering any questions you have. So have a great night. Ask as many questions as you want. And most importantly, thank you. I hope to meet you all face to face soon. And with that, I'm going to turn it over, I think, to our United States Air Force representative, Ethan Delbert. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Congressman Phillips. I really appreciate that introduction, and also thank you to your team for setting this event up this evening. After going to a few of them, they are super helpful in answering a ton of questions that a lot of students have. If I could share my screen real quick, we'll get started. Awesome. So I am Second Lieutenant Ethan Diver, and I recently graduated from the Air Force Academy this past June. So I'm brand new in the Air Force, just entered active duty around 10, 11 months ago. So I have a lot of experience with the Air Force Academy, having been there the last 4 years. So in my role is, kind of hit next screen here. Give me 1 second. So as an Academy admissions advisor, my job is to mentor those applying. I attend events like this, represent, speak about the Academy, but the whole other half of my job is mentoring those who apply. So by the end of this brief, you guys will have my contact information. Reach out. I'm located at Hill Air Force Base in Utah, but I can connect you with a mission advisor who's a little closer. But I grew up in Cocoa Beach, Florida, doing all the Florida Man activities you can think of. And then how I got into the academy and got interested in the academy is through gymnastics. I've been doing gymnastics since I was very, very little. And I was recruited there to do gymnastics my 4 years. Those are photos of me. That's me shaking the president's hand and receiving my diploma this past June. So I kind of want to jump into the academic data that you need to get in. Now, these scores in GPA you see are the averages of cadets who get in. So if you're looking at these and you're like, oh, I'm a little low in one category, we still recommend you apply. These are the averages of those cadets who get in. And now the academies, most of them do super score. And if you don't know what that means, it's if you take the ACT and you do really well in 3 categories and bad in another, then you take it again later on, you do a lot better in math, which you did in bad before. The academy is going to take your highest score, even if it's from different tests. So that's something to remember. So for me, I recommend that you take both the SAT and ACT. There was one test that I was scoring a lot higher in when I was applying, and that happens for a lot of students. All right, you also have to be physically and medically qualified. So that is our cadet fitness assessment right there, and that is pretty standard for West Point and USNA. These are all the same test for each academies. And a GROTC instructor, any officer in the Air Force, Navy, Army can administer these tests. And then you also go to a doctor, get a physical done, and submit that to the Department of Defense Medical Evaluation Review Board. A little bit of a mouthful there. And they are evaluate whether you're medically qualified to enter the service. Next, you're going to submit a resume showing the activities you've done throughout your high school career. You're going to want to show leadership as much as you can in this. So any athletics you participate in, you want to show like a team captain position or a role, any work, life experience, whether you set up an event for your school and you had some sort of leadership role in that. You're going to want to show that on your resume that you submit to the congressional office that you're applying through for the nomination and also to the academy. So really, the more you have, the merrier. Now, one thing I'd like to point out is that I did not have a military background. I never did GROTC. I never did Silver Air Patrol, and my family was not in the military. This wasn't a big inhibiting factor for me entering the academy. So if you see GROTC and Silver Air Patrol up there, these can definitely help you out, but you don't necessarily need them to get accepted in an appointment to the academy. Now, nomination, I just want to point out here that a nomination is required for any cadet going through. So this is very important. These are deadlines you're going to want to set for yourself ahead of time. So say the deadline is September of later this year. Say in early August, I'm going to have this done. Or even late July, I'm going to have my package ready to go to send off to them. Now, I do want to touch on our preparatory school. So we have one located in Colorado Springs at the Air Force Academy, and then there's 5 across the country. And what these are is a 1-year-long program where you're taking the same classes you will be your freshman, sophomore year at the academy, wearing a uniform and learning how to be a cadet. This is another year to prep entering an academy. How you apply for these is filling out the normal USAFA application, Air Force Academy application, and then submitting it as you would trying to get a direct entry. There's no separate application for these prep schools or the Falcon Foundation Scholarship Program. Now, kind of diving into the cadet wing and what the cadets, the students at the academy look like. So out of 4,000, around 4,000 cadets, we have our cadet wing and 4 groups. And within each group is 10 squadrons of around 100 to 120 cadets. Now, with just having recently graduated and having reached out to my squadron even earlier today, these are going to be your best friends that you lean and rely on as you're going through the challenges of the Air Force Academy. You live next door to one another, so whether it's physics, homework, personal stuff you have going on, they are always there. They are like-minded individuals with similar goals that you can lean on throughout your cadet career, and they will become your best friends. Now, basic cadet training, it's a 6-week-long program. This is your first 6 weeks at the Air Force Academy. where you learn how to enter the military, how to wear a uniform, military customs and courtesies, and more importantly, how to be a cadet and how to be a follower your first 2 years at the academy. Those are two pictures of me at the bottom when I went through it a little over 4 years ago. And the cool thing about this program, it is all cadet led. So later down the road, I was working this program, mentoring in charge of 50 of my peers, who are some of them older than me, some of them more experienced than me. But I got to practice and implement my own leadership skills in this program. And this is only one out of many programs where you get to build up, learn about your personal leadership experiences and your skills that you'll use later on in your active duty career. Incredibly rewarding experience and my favorite part of the Air Force Academy personally. Now, this is kind of how we rack and stack against other schools. I do have one update to this slide. We are now the #2 public college, which is awesome. But the academy definitely is STEM focused. So engineering, technology, computer science, they're the best of the best here at the Air Force Academy. A lot of money goes into these programs. Right now, we're building a $58 million cyber facility just for cadets to use and develop their skills in the cyber domain. Now, these are all the majors and minors offered. I did mention the academy is STEM focused, but for example, I was a business management degree. So that's what I studied. That's what my bachelor's of science is in, business management. And then senior year, each one of these majors will have their own project that they get out to go do. So my senior project was making a business, and the academy paid for me to travel the country to pitch to investors, where they actually invested money into my business that I was creating. Now, each one of these majors has competitive and travel opportunities with it. If you look down at the minors, these language minors, you have chances to do semesters abroad at the French Air Force Academy. And during the summer, you can go to Africa, Brazil. I've had friends who've done the summer in Japan. Incredible experiences that the Air Force Academy will pay for. And another thing I'd like to point out is that the classroom size, the student to teacher ratio is amazing. I personally was able to contact my instructors, have them come in early for me around like 6 o'clock in the morning if I needed help, primarily in math for me. But I was never in a class larger than 25 students. And the majority of my classes were around 10 students once I got deep into my majors classes. Now, quickly touching on the teams, we have a ton of intercollegiate Division I teams that we have. And then we also have a ton of cadet clubs. Whether or not you're a recruited athlete, you will be participating in sports, whether that's with the squadron or one of these clubs. And as you can see here, there's something for everybody. I'd like to point out our FalconSat team. They have more satellites orbiting the Earth right now in space than most countries in the world. And that is satellites that cadets put their own equipment on and that are currently orbiting the Earth right now, which is incredibly cool. Next, these are other programs that cadets will be able to participate in. So most cadets will get the opportunity to fly, whether it's in a gliding aircraft or a power-to-flight aircraft. And then a lot of cadets will have the opportunity to take our jump course, which is the only place in the world where the first time you jump out of an airplane is by yourself. You pull your own parachute. I did that program, and it was incredibly cool. I really enjoyed it. Here are the career options that you have after. So my career for this first year is an admissions advisor, but I'm headed to pilot training here in a few months to start my pilot training career. Now, like a pilot, doctor, dentist, lawyer, the Air Force is going to invest a lot of time and money into you. So they're going to ask a little bit more time out of you. So those commitments for that job is around 10 years, where everything else is around 5 years. Also, around 50% of our graduating class will go to pilot training, and now 10% are graduating straight into the Space Force to commission as a Space Force officer. Now, to tie it all together, no room, board costs, tuition costs, a guaranteed career. A lot of my friends were struggling finding career options and jobs, graduating college. That wasn't for me. I knew exactly what I was going to be getting paid, what I was going to be doing as soon as I graduated, which was incredibly rewarding. So my time is up here. But by the end of this conversation, I'll make sure that you guys have my email, my work phone number that you have to reach out. But I really appreciate you all giving me the chance to speak about my college option the last 4 years. in Colorado Springs. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ethan, for sharing that. And just a reminder to anyone in the audience, if you do have a question, we welcome you type it up in the chat. And at the end, we will have we will have an opportunity to go through all those questions and answer them. And you can wait till the end and use the hand sign, and we can call and unmute you, and then you can ask your question live. So next we have Ken with the U.S. Naval Academy.
Thanks much, Lewis. You can hear me? Great. That was a great setup there, Ethan. This is really neat getting your perspective as someone who just went through an academy. That's awesome. And my thanks also to Dean Phillips's office for setting up this event and having the opportunity to speak with you. I'm here representing the Naval Academy today. By way of background, I did not attend the Naval Academy, but I was a submarine officer in the Navy. I stayed in the reserves after that. I have a son who attended the Naval Academy and graduated last spring. He had a very successful time there. And I've got a younger son who's going to start at the Air Force Academy this summer. So I know a little bit about both of them, but my focus is Naval Academy. And that's the part I want to talk to you about. My role is as a Blue Gold officer. That's specific to the Naval Academy admissions process. The Blue Gold officer is someone who lives in the community and helps candidates who are applying, help you go through the application. We do an interview process. Each of the other branches uses something similar to that, but it is unique to us. There's about 30 of us in Minnesota that help candidates. So let me get advanced here. There we are. So I'm mostly going to focus on what's different from what Ethan said, because between the Air Force Academy, the Naval Academy, and West Point, there's a lot of similarity, especially between those three. Of course, unique is the location. The Naval Academy is in beautiful downtown Annapolis. This is an awesome location. Annapolis is the capital of Maryland, but it's got a small town feel, even though it's right there in the city. And as you step outside the gate, you're right there it's almost a tourist mecca among the ice cream shops, the restaurants, the shops, and everything else that goes with it. But the yard itself, which is what we refer to the campus, is a beautiful, nearly Ivy League type of appearance with great old buildings as well as cutting edge new technology facilities. This shows some of the items that are on the yard as some of the things. Of course, everything you need there as far as your shops, your dentistry, your medical, dental, your gym, all your athletic facilities, all your classrooms is all right there in easy access. As far as the majors, these are very similar to what you saw at the Air Force Academy. There is a requirement that 60% of the students that go through the academy take on technical STEM majors. That's never been an issue from the standpoint of anybody being forced to take on a technical major that they weren't planning to, because the numbers always come in higher than that. But you can see how this breaks down as far as the engineering majors, more of the hard science, chemistry, mathematics, as well as there are also options in the humanities and social sciences. But everyone who comes through gets out with a Bachelor of Science. They're not Bachelor of Arts. They also often offer minors. The foreign languages come in minors. Those aren't available as majors. This is also very similar as far as the small class size, a great student-teacher ratio. And another thing I'll point out here is about the faculty that's there. It's very common for a junior officer after their first sea tours to come back as faculty at the Naval Academy. But then there's also civilian instructors there they're like professors at a regular college who provide the consistency of being there from year to year, because people who are military instructors would only be there for the length of their tour. Just like the other academies, it's a full scholarship. It covers your tuition, room, board, your medical and dental. And in addition, there's a stipend that goes along with it. So it's very different than attending a regular paid for college. The sports, very similar. You'll find a little bit of difference between the academies, between, do they have girls gymnastics or which combination is out there. But in general, almost everything you'd want to have at the varsity level as well as at the club level, it is an option for you. And so this just quickly shows the list of varsity sports. Here are club sports. And then intramural activities, everyone participates in a sport. It's built in part of your schedule at the end of the class day. But in addition to the sports, our extracurricular activities, again, almost everything you'd see at a civilian college or one of the other military academies. If you have an interest there, there's an opportunity to pursue that. And then with graduation comes a service requirement. Again, you graduate with a Bachelor of Science. You're commissioned as an officer in the Navy or in the U.S. Marine Corps. I want to point out that about 25% of the graduates from the Naval Academy will commission into the Marine Corps. That means they commission as a second lieutenant. Those who commission into the Navy commission as ensigns. And then the service requirement, just like what was said earlier, is 5 years for most career areas, but the ones that require greater training, some of the Navy pilot roles, those have longer service requirements. And advice for admissions. This is extremely similar. Take strong curriculum of math and science. Take the standardized tests, take them early, take them often, again, with the super score. Take your advanced classes, but it's important to be able to show that you're a well-rounded individual. And some advice we give is rather than being a social butterfly that joins every club in high school, go deep into a few things. So be able to show where you had a passion, where you were a leader in something, whether that's a chess club or whether it's a captain for a varsity sport. So show some things that you've really taken on and left your mark on. When it comes to grade points, yes, they're important, but we all know there's some grade inflation in high school, and it's the standardized tests that particularly can define and really stratify. So although you'll see what the range is for the average student, you want to be as high in that range as possible. The physical qualifications, it was mentioned. It'll be common for some of you to apply to more than one academy. When you do, that same phy-ed teacher or coach or military officer can administer the test for you, and then they simply enter the scores in the individual portal. So it goes to the Naval Academy, it goes to the Air Force Academy, it goes to West Point, or wherever you're applying. The nominations, I'm not going to go into that because all of them require that, and Lewis is going to talk about the process for getting those nominations. I wanted to talk a little bit about how you get ready because I know some of you, you're not all juniors on here. Some of you might even be younger and planning ahead, and it's great that you are. If you are a rising junior or below, there's opportunity to take STEM, to go to one of the STEM camps that the academies offer. For those of you who are rising juniors, meaning next year, in January, the application will open for summer seminar. That's a program you attend for a week before your senior year, and that allows you to really get a better feel for what academy life would be like. For those of you who will be rising seniors, your real application will open on January 1st as you apply for summer seminar. And then after that, you can really get into the application about in the June timeframe so that just as you're starting your senior year, you're well deep in that application process. So information on summer seminar, there is a charge that goes with it. There are scholarships available for it. And then the reasons for going to the Naval Academy, I want to point out again about the full scholarship, the guaranteed employment. I really think the location is the advantage over the other academies. I mean, if you get a chance to visit Annapolis, it's really a nice place. A great opportunity for leadership and character development and a very high graduation rate. They're there to support you and help you get through the program. Ways to get additional information. All of you are very tech savvy. Through all of these channels, you can get additional information and stay up on the timing. So I want to put one last plug in because I don't think we're going to talk about ROTC programs here today, but ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps, is a great opportunity. And when somebody applies to the Naval Academy, your commitment toward leadership and toward national defense and interest in being a military officer, that really shows if as a backup you have an ROTC plan, something you're also pursuing. So make sure you look into that, and happy to provide information on any of these programs. And with that, I stayed right in my time. So that's it, Lewis.
Thank you. And for that. And then next we have Jeff. I'm not sure if you are able to.
I am here.
Okay, so give me 1 second and I can share this for you. Let me know if everything looks good.
It does. Thank you.
No worries.
That. So good evening, all. My name is Jeff Olson, O-L-S-O-N, the correct spelling in Minnesota here. And I'm a graduate of the United States Military Academy from back in 1979. So the picture you're seeing on the screen is intimately familiar. I was one of those folks out there wearing all gray, marching behind the flag. So I'm going to try to go through a lot of the screens that duplicate what you've already heard, and then just cover maybe some of the differences. The first difference is I just want to point out, and I think everybody agrees, the academy you choose, you're going to get an excellent education and experience no matter which one you choose. The big difference here is, do you want to serve in the United States Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard, Merchant Marine? Where is it that you want to serve the country? And that is will be the big determiner in which academy or academies that you apply to. As much as I don't want to say apply to Navy and Air Force, if you are interested in a military career as an officer and you think you would like any of those directions, we would all encourage you to apply to multiple locations, to include ROTC. Could we go to the next screen? So we'll talk a little bit about West Point offers. We'll talk just briefly about the cadet life, and the application process I'm going to go through pretty quickly because it's about the same. The one thing I will say, to the Congressman's credit and Luis's credit and everybody in that office's credit, is that Congressional District 3 here in Minnesota produces a lot of candidates to all of the academies. This office from Congressional District 3 does an unbelievable job in getting the word out and making information available to the high school students in the congressional district. So congratulations to them. I had 5 go to West Point this year out of Congressional District 3. So you're going to get a lot of support here. Next screen. Okay, so our promise to you, our job is to help you develop as a leader of character, committed to our motto, everything that runs what we do: duty, honor, country, to prepare you for an excellent career as an officer in the United States Army. Next. So again, pretty quickly, what we offer: a Bachelor of Science degree. We 36 majors. We are obviously accredited. It's a full scholarship. As of this year, the value of the scholarship exceeds $250,000, and that's just the academic portion of the scholarship. When you add in everything like study abroad programs, internships, the military training, etc., oh my, it gets a lot larger. So the value of this is incredible. 29 varsity teams, Division I programs, a lot of club sports, intramurals, of course, and like all the rest of the academies, the opportunity for a career starter loan to help you get going with wherever you happen to be deployed. You can buy that car if you want, or get yourself an apartment, someplace to live. So that's also available as part of the program too. Next. Okay, we'll talk a little bit very briefly about these 4 different topics here. Next. That is a drone view of the campus. It is located on the west point of the Hudson River, hence the name. It is the longest garrisoned military post in the country. We were first. We were established as the United States Military Academy primarily as an engineering and artillery school back in 1802. Next. These change regularly. As of last year, we were the #2 public school, #5 undergrad engineering program. I will commend the other academies too. Every year, all of the academies are in the top 10 for engineering schools in this country, even though technically we're not engineering schools. We do pretty well there. Princeton Review liked us a lot, #1 in counseling service, best health services, accessible professors. You can see the rankings there. I'm not going to read them. Scholar winners all time, #5 in most Rhodes Scholars. The only schools that beat us are some of the Ivy League schools. That's it. Next, please. We have had a few famous graduates. Dwight Eisenhower. And if you play basketball at all, you should know the name Mike Krzyzewski. He was a grad. Alejandro Villanueva played for the Ravens as of not long ago. Douglas MacArthur. Very briefly, just out of my class alone, let's see, we had 2 astronauts. We had the chief of spinal surgery for the University of Minnesota was a grad. Another surgical spinal surgeon, a renowned spinal surgeon, dean of engineering at Georgia Tech. And if you've ever ordered anything off of Amazon or ever stored anything in the cloud, that was Rick, my classmate, who was the #2 man at Amazon and designed that whole system. So there are lots of things to do even there or even afterwards. So if you're on the border about doing this as a career, the opportunities are awesome. Next, please. So this is what a day in the life looks like. Get up in the morning, you hear that curse word bugle go off, go to breakfast, go to classes, come back for lunch. After classes in the afternoon, you will have athletics, whether that's is a Division I sport, a club sport, or intramurals. And in the evening, of course, is personal time for prep and for study. Perhaps go to bed at 11:30 or about midnight or so. And there's what a typical day looks like. So fairly structured, less structured than what it looks like. You do have time for your own activities there too. Next, please. This is what the 4 years academic program looks like. And as you can see in the gray, you'll see majors. Dark gray are electives where you can choose courses, typically that support your major. You can see IT courses built in there, a lot of STEM in there. If you look at that, you will see STEM-based courses all over the place. So that's typically what the academic program looks like. There's a lot of variability in there, obviously, when you choose your major. Next, please. 36 academic majors. I'm not going to read these. There's a lot of overlap and differences between the academies. You'll see a lot of these courses have the word engineering in them, be it civil or environmental or electrical, mechanical, etc. So if you're into engineering at all, I think we might have something for you. Next, please. Men's sports, you saw screens from the other academies with this. And again, these are the D1 sports that you'll see. Basketball, baseball, we have a great baseball team. We've got a great hockey team. We almost took out the national champions 2 years ago with our hockey team. So women's sports, rifle, rugby, lacrosse, volleyball, soccer, etc. So broad spectrum for whatever types of sports you might be interested in. Next, please. Club sports, if it's not D1, we've got club sports. A lot of these are intercollegiate. I did judo while we were there and competed intercollegiately in judo. So what you see here, these are also non-D1, but you get the opportunity to play other schools. Next, please. Cadet clubs, oh my. Based on hobbies, based on religion, based on support, military, diversity, academic, languages. You'll see theater support clubs. You'll see the sport parachute team. That's the young lady you see on the left there who wants to jump out of a perfectly good airplane and do that as a matter of having fun. So you can see the karate team. based there. You see cadet bands. There's a jazz band. There's a cadet orchestra. So if you're a musician, we'll have something there for you too. Also, Glee Club if you're a singer. Please, next. You've seen a lot about this. There's a lot of overlap here. The first 6 weeks, cadet basic training. Second summer, cadet field training. You're out at Camp Buckner doing different branch work. You'll get experiences with artillery, armor, signal, and all the various branches in the Army. And then your third and fourth summer, you will be in a leadership position helping to develop the newer cadets, the first 2-year cadets. Next. Study abroad programs. You can see that we send cadets all over the world. We have the attitude that if we're going to work with other countries and know about them and have our military be that much stronger and that much more capable, we should send people to experience those cultures and those militaries. It's just then they bring that information back and share it with the rest of the Corps of Cadets. Internships, White House, Fortune 500 companies, NASA, FBI, other 3-letter agencies. And then we also send cadets to foreign academies, France, England, Austria, Belgium, etc. Next, please. Our different branch opportunities you can see here. I'm not going to read all of these off, but you can see engineers, you'll see medical, you'll see signal, transportation, ordnance, making things blow up. Quartermaster, providing people with a dynamite to blow them up, driving tanks, military intelligence. We do send people to special forces. That would be Rangers and Green Berets in our case. PsyOps, psychological operations, civil affairs. We do send people to the Space Corps too, the new branch. So, okay, next. And pretty much the rest of this is going to be very duplicative of what you've already heard. I do want to bring one thing up that a lot of people just don't know about with the Academy, is that we have about 40 to 50 different what we call centers of excellence. We have the Combating Terrorism Center, the Center for Innovation and Engineering, Center for Leadership and Diversity in STEM, the Robotics Research Center, Photonics Research Center, that's physics and nuclear engineering, Operational Research Center, and typically anywhere between 30 and 50 cadets will be studying and working in those centers while they're being cadets. So you have the opportunity to go to some folk, to work with people that are advising our government and foreign governments in different topics. With that, I'm going to post my contact information, and I would encourage you to go to a website. It's westpoint.edu/admissions. Every question you have about what's available, what sort of things you can do, what's it like, what does it take to apply, you can find at that site, westpoint.edu/admissions. There you see my contact information. Please, if you have any questions at all about the admissions process, I am very happy to help you work through that whole process. And with that, I'll turn it back to Luis.
Thank you. And yeah, it's on the screen right here as well, Jeff. I put it up for a few seconds so they could see the information. So thank you again for sharing. I'm going to stop sharing this now. And then we got, we got the U.S. Coast Guard Academy next. So Chris, can you hear me? I'm not sure if Chris is gone somewhere. Give me 1 second. I think Chris is having an audio issue, so I think we're kind of just waiting for him to see if he can resolve that. Give us one moment. Sorry about that. Actually, we're gonna jump into sorry about that. We're gonna jump into the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. Just because I know Chris is having difficulty. So give me 1 second and I will share that for you. Let me know when you're good, Rich.
I think we're good. Um, the United States Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point, New York, has been perennially one of the best kept secrets as far as uh, dedicated resource for training leaders. As far as the location, it's on Long Island Sound, 83 acres, formerly of the owned by Walter P. Chrysler. It's donated to the Academy in 1943. When you think about the Merchant Marine Academy, think Division III type sports. They generally only have about 1,000 people on campus. Pretty consistent as far as the relationship, as far as and student faculty ratio and class size. It's a 4-year program, definitely and on hands in our doing this. And that includes internships and then 300 days at sea sailing in the either private sector or on naval ships. Next, please. So what do we do? I mean, what does the Merchant Marine do? Uh, we don't, we generally don't fly tanks anywhere. We don't fly, howitzer rounds anywhere. So we're supporting in a national emergency or war. We are the Fourth Armed Defense. That's what FDR anointed us with when we were dedicated in 1943. But also in peace, where we provide in the private sector, the officers for American bottoms, and that can be things from like sailing on the lakes to being on towboats on the Mississippi, or being a pilot for the Inland Passage up in Alaska, or a pilot through the Panama Canal. The next slide, please. So what do you earn there? You get something extra out of 4 years at the Merchant Marine Academy. You get your Bachelor of Science degree, again, STEM orientation, with a heavy thumb on the scale for math and science. You get a commission in the armed forces. You get a commission, a license, and that's the differentiator. You get a license to be in the private sector operating on vessels of unlimited horsepower, diesel, or steam. It's an adventure of a lifetime. And one of the differences with the Merchant Marine Academy is you get a commission in the armed forces, but you can, in your senior year, choose in which branch of the armed forces you'd like to activate your commission. And I was just at an event in Prior Lake and met up with a young man, and his father and his uncle both went to the Merchant Marine Academy. Both went into the Navy, and both became Navy pilots. It's a 300 grand investment in you. They can work in the industry for 5 years and maintain your license for 6 years, and then in total 8 years in the Navy Reserve, or you can go active duty. And again, your choice. Couple examples on that just came up talking to to the hockey coach, at least one, is his senior goalie. Um, all he talked about the whole time he was there was just going to go into the Marines, and came to making his choice. He talked to the Marine representative and he was asked what he wanted to do, and he says, "Well, I want to be in logistics." And he said, "Well, we really don't have a billet for that. How about this?" Well, he went and talked to the representative from the Army, and they had a billet, so he activated his commission in the Army. Next slide. Academics, 5 majors. Again, we only have 1,000 people, so having 38 or 40 majors, that's not a good use of our federal dollars. But so we focus our majors in being marine transportation for the deck officers, and marine engineering are the two foundation majors, and those are the ones that maximize the number of electives that you can have in your choice. I was marine, and we only had those 2 majors when I was there in 1970 to 1974. But I took all my electives in mathematics. What has changed is we've recognized that there's 3 other areas where we can really make an impact on the maritime industry. One is the marine logistics and security. When you see all those pictures during the COVID time, as far as all those containers are concerned, think about managing a port, San Diego, New York, Bayonne, New Jersey. And so that's one of the in that situation that you stay focused in that space and allows you have fewer electives as a result. Marine engineering systems. I would imagine on every bridge they still have a sextant, but they probably don't use it anymore because they do all their navigation with satellites, and the ship is steered by satellite, and so those automated systems, as well as in the engine room for monitoring and controlling the systems in the engine room. There's a major where you're will design and install those types and maintain those types of systems. And upon graduation, think about factory automation, robotics, and AI. Then there's also the marine engineering specialty for shipyard management. And shipyard, it's just a big machine shop. So think about running a manufacturing facility. You got the list of the sports. One of the young ladies that's got an appointment, she's a diver, and she was a state level diver, and she's also went to state and pole vault. Waterfront, I would lay our capabilities as far as our power squadron and our sailing team up against everybody. Lots of clubs. Dog doesn't like something in the background. I'm sorry. Lots of clubs. You name it, and we have it. And if we don't have it, if you can make a case for it, they'll start something up. Next slide, please. See, here is a big differentiator. I mean, you will go and you will work with people that they're doing their career, and it's 300 days at sea in two different time periods during your stay at the Merchant Marine Academy. I went to the Blue Mosque. I went to the Palace Topkapi. I ate dinner on the Golden Horn out of just south of Istanbul. I went to Ephesus, where Paul went after Jesus was crucified. I walked the streets of Pompeii. I went to Tunis and saw, learned a history lesson. Don't piss off the Romans when I visited the ruins for Carthage. Saw guitars made by hand in Seville. I was on a passenger ship, hit every major port in South America. So adventure of a lifetime, a lot of real world real world experience. Next slide. There's lots of options and opportunities. We'll get a little bit in that, but so you in the service, in the private industry, And well, there's another slide that talks a little bit more about that in a moment. Next slide, please. So we have pilots. My commanding officer, my freshman year, was on president's staff. He was in cyber warfare, and he ended up being a two-star admiral. So you don't necessarily have to go to Annapolis to become an admiral. Next slide, please. Same deal. This is a tech thing. We require calculus. Don't show up. Yeah, calculus is required. You can take either test, and the same qualifications. Our application for the class of 2029 opened up May 1st for juniors, and those are the deadlines, and those are the key websites. Next. We're broken up by region. If you get, I send out my email. If you send me, respond to my email, I'll give you some more of the information, and I'll give you essentially this deck plus some other information. And also I will copy on that email Lieutenant Commander Tina Skogers, and she's responsible for the Blue Central region. Next slide, please. And I'll process your questions at the end when they come up. I guess what's different in our situation, any representative in the state of Minnesota, if you live in Minnesota, can nominate you. So you can apply with any one of them. We prepare you immediately to be successful in the private sector. At the same time, if active duty is what you feel your life calling is, you can choose which service you're in, and there you can't top the year at sea as far as the opportunity to grow up and figure out how to make, people your dad's age and figure out how to work with them. So thanks very much for your time. I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you for presenting. Give me 1 second. Is Chris, are you able to, is your technology working?
Okay. Unmuted?
Yes, we
Should be
can hear you.
unmuted.
Give me 1 second so I can share your presentation, and then you could just let me know. All right.
I see it. Outstanding. All right. Hi, my name is Chris Enesvet. I'm an admissions partner for the United States Coast Guard Academy. It's been quite a weekend. I was out at the academy this weekend dropping off a car for my daughter, so she's got one for summer session this year. I was out seeing people and I'm traveling, and I barely got home in time for this. An admissions partner, we're volunteers, most of us. The Coast Guard is significantly smaller, so I think their entire admission staff is like 8 or 12 people, and the lion's share of it is, like the other services, a lot of volunteers, parents, alumni, whatever else. So that's who I am coming to speak to you now. I come from the perspective of a parent and a big fan. Over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, we've learned quite a bit about the Coast Guard, and I am just an unabashed fanboy. I think it's an outstanding organization. A lot about it being an academy is very similar to what everybody else has gone through so far. And so mostly what I'm going to talk about is a little bit more about the Coast Guard itself, since not everybody understands it that well, and then point out where we're similar or different from all the other ones that you've already heard so far. So slide. Yeah, what do we got? Oh, all right. So the primary, this is a little bit older deck. This is from about 3 or 4 years ago. I think this one has 12, and I think today they say they have 11 primary missions. And if you think about that, that's kind of insane. But they do overlap quite a bit. And so you go out every day to work to do stuff. Comes down to basically 4 or 5 groups of tasks. Search and rescue. Watch Dangerous Catch, and it's falling overboard in the middle of dangerous water, and they go get them. The navigation, they run all the lighthouses all over the place. They mark all the rivers. They mark and post all the harbors throughout the United States and its coastal waters. Boating safety, every life vest, there's a rule for it, and we certify whether or not it's okay. How many lifeboats are on a craft? every safety regulation around boating and maritime actions all over the United States, and everybody who does business with us, is managed and measured and decided on and set by the Coast Guard. Waterways management, they essentially act as air traffic controllers for major harbors like Long Beach, Houston, New York, Los Angeles, Seattle. Those huge, busy ports, they have traffic management run by the Coast Guard, people in and out. Maritime security, so law enforcement, they're not in the Department of Defense. They are under Homeland Security right now, so they actually have arrest. They can arrest you with law enforcement, as opposed to, if a Navy ship boards somebody from another nation, means something profoundly different than if a policeman stops them, for fisheries violations, for example, act of war versus a law enforcement thing. That's a really big deal. That's drunk boating, that's illegal fisheries at sea, that's immigration, that's all sorts of things like this. It runs a huge gamut of things. Defense operations. During wartime, the Coast Guard has been placed underneath Department of Defense and, assisted with the Navy or the Marines very frequently. We have a U.S. Medal of Honor winner in the Coast Guard who is landing people on Guadalcanal. The Coast Guard had a lot of people driving landing craft during D-Day in World War II. They drove a lot of boats in the Brownwater Navy up and down the rivers of Vietnam. So there's a long history of them doing a lot of real live military stuff when the moment came. Other maritime security they do is, this is a little bit older deck, they still do quite a bit of migrant interdiction, obviously. There's a lot of it, but it's regional. You do it in Florida, you do it down in Texas along the Mexican coast. The people on the Great Lakes, the people up near Maine, they don't do any migrant interdiction. So, all these different things are regional. One that's not on here, I don't believe, is drug interdiction. They do quite a bit of that. Little go-fast boats coming out of South America or out of the Caribbean, they interdict a lot of those. If you saw on the news about 3 or 4 years ago, the Coast Guard guy jumping on the roof of a little submarine and beating on it with his fist. Fun interdiction types of things out there if you want to get into tactical stuff. Mobility, there's ice operations. We have the only United States operated icebreaker. So they break grocery runs down to McMurdo at South Pole. They keep Great Lakes open. They go up into the Arctic and do research up there. Fascinating stuff. Environmental protection, there's marine science, which is understanding wildlife, endangered species, fisheries, and managing all that sort of thing in the climate change is affecting what types of things you find where and what the rules should be about that. Environmental response is basically a spill. Deepwater Horizon in the Gulf of Mexico, a hurricane where everything on the streets of New Orleans washes into the harbor. Baltimore, they drop a bridge right in the middle of the thing. And so that is an environmental thing on top of the traffic problems. National Defense is also port and safety and anti-terrorism. They're responsible for doing anti-terrorism work among huge ports, all those containers and mammoth ports coming in off the West Coast, all the rail stuff that comes out of the multimodal things. A huge anti-terrorism and port safety role down there, ship inspections, and that sort of thing. In Homeland Security, they are also the primary providers of airspace peace work over the District of Columbia. So if you're flying in there and just wandering over the White House, the Coast Guard will interdict, and if you won't leave, then they call the Air Force, and the Air Force enforces things for them. So it's a huge span of different things that you can do on a regular basis. And it's what's most about it is, we can go to the next slide a little bit, and it'll tell you. Department of Homeland Security, all about stewardship and security and safety. You're preserving things. You're keeping people safe. You're rescuing people that are in trouble. You're enforcing the laws. You are worried about the environment. You're worried about a lot of things like this. And so on a day-to-day basis, you're preserving. I was talking at the past weekend, and somebody said, "How did your brother get in here?" And he said he was really struck by the difference between search and destroy or search and rescue. It's much more of lifesavers, the lighthouse service and pulling boats out of the water, for 100 years. And it's a very small service. I think the entire Coast Guard is 43,000 people. The nuts all the way through thing. It's smaller than the New York City Police Department. And so when you're doing this every day, it's not SEAL Team 6 coming in to take care of the hard stuff. guy was officer of the day a month ago, and a bridge dropped across Baltimore Harbor. It's you. It is not, big guys aren't coming. It is you. And so in a small service, it's you. And so it really is every single day something can happen. Somebody was on when Deepwater Horizon went in the Gulf of Mexico. Somebody was on when Exxon Valdez crashes here. Somebody was on when the boat full of migrants drowns, or when the, so I mean, it's not like you are actually going to be specifically in charge of this on a day-to-day basis. And it's challenging, and it's rewarding, and it's fascinating. That's the Coast Guard. If we go to the next slide, Academy is in New London, Connecticut. It's been there since, I think, 1876. Pretty old. It's a much smaller school. You're up and down the coast. You can take the train up to Boston, down to New York. It's pretty nearby. We fly in either Hartford, Providence, or Boston. They're all about 45 to 70 minutes apart. Nice little town. It's across the Thames River from the Groton sub base. So we could gigantic nuclear submarine will come right up the river in front of you with a tiny little Navy speedboat with a blue siren on it to keep it safe. Kind of funny. Right, we can go to the next slide. Do this. Okay, let's talk about this. This campus is small. It's much more of a peer of the Marine Academy than it is from the big three. We're about 1,100 students. We'll start with class of 275, 280, 290, and graduate 250 to 260. So there'll be about a 10% attrition rate over the course of the 4 years. Are currently at about 42% female and about 38% minority. Grades are approximately right. They're a little low. The varsity athletes are a little higher than this right now. It's up to over 70% earn engineering degrees. Daughter was having some scheduling problems her junior year, and she called and said, "Do I have to have a fourth year Spanish? Because I want to do this other class." And they said, "We're a STEM academy. We need Spanish. We'll teach it to you. You know, so don't worry about it." Does not have the representation requirements the way that the big academies do, because there's only 250 kids and we can't get 50 states represented in whatever. It doesn't all fit. Some years they typically have 47, 48 different states and half a dozen nations every year. My daughter's class, there's nobody from Rhode Island, which is 20 miles away from the academy. Not like they didn't know about it, just nobody made the grade that year. Again, it's a rigorous academic environment, very similar to the other academies. You know, ACTs or SATs, get your grades in. We can go to the next slide and we'll talk a little bit about what it is. It's similar to the other ones. It's U.S. News and World Report, niche, Pearson's, all these things love these service academies, and they're all very, very similar. We have, if you look over on the right side, the list of the 9 degrees, we have 9 programs: engineering for civil, engineering for electrical, engineering mechanical, naval, research, the marine and environmental biology type major. Then there's government management and cyber. So it is very heavy. Everybody takes calculus, everybody takes physics, everybody takes history freshman year, no matter what your major is. And you hammer through it together. And move on to that sort of thing. So I guess what I'll tell you right now is our student faculty ratio is down to about 7 to 1. We do have the job placement. We do pay you all the rest of these sorts of things. It's very, very similar in your structured summers. It's about a 200-week program. It'll go from July 1st through May of senior year. You different about us, I guess, is in SWAB summer at 7 weeks, because one of the weeks you're on Eagle, the tall sailing ship, 300 feet long with 140-foot masts. You are sailing the ship, the 100 of you that are on board. Summer between freshman and sophomore year, you'll get 6 weeks on that. Other things that are interesting, 80%, 4 and 5 of our graduates go on to graduate school. So 85% of our graduates stay beyond their 5-year requirement. It's much higher than the other academies. There's a lot more 5 and dive in the others. Have way more lieutenants to watch, way more 19-year-old, privates. So they're just shaped differently than we are. We keep a huge number of our officers past their 5-year requirement. You can go on to the next slide a little bit. And what's over here? have 25 intercollegiate sports. We are in sailing. We're Division I. We used to be in pistol and shooting in Division I, but that guy graduated. Just like the other academies, you are required to be participating in some sort of athletic thing, either at a collegiate level or a club level. 2 out of 3 seasons every single year, you have to do something. Marching band counts, that sort of thing. We're an Adidas shoe contract. So yes, you play. We had a couple people when COVID came around, they graduated and they were all Americans in D3. So instead of going directly to C, they were allowed to go directly to graduate school so that they could use up their COVID year at a Division I program and running. They make allowances for that. We had an Olympic shooter for the 21 team. They shuffled around his assignments so he could prep for the 20 Olympic team in Tokyo. But then they did to 2021 and he lost his chance. The other things, if we go one more slide, huge music program. 1 in 6 people who admitted to the Coast Guard Academy played in band in high school. There is a little thumb on the scale for, just like athletics, for music programs. It's not big, but they do actually make sure that they bring in people for these different things. Next screen. So here's the admissions program. It's very similar to the other things. Here's the huge thing on the left side there. See where it says no nomination? You do not need to go through the congressional process for nominations. You just apply like a regular school. Apply through is they open the applications up. Some other stuff on here. Similar to all the other schools, you apply, you get in. There's an early decision in October date that you'll know by Christmas if you got in or not. Otherwise, go through January and you'll know by April. Anything else on the next page? What slide this is? All sorts of things. I guess the only thing that really else to know about this is we're significantly smaller, and so you know everybody. There's only one officer specialty. Either you go to be a pilot, you don't. When you don't, you could be assigned to a small boat station, out at a cutter at sea, doing security in a station. After your first 2 or 3 tours, you'll choose what you want to focus on more. You'll like to stay at sea, you want to go into security, whatever. There is no specialization out of the academy. You're going to get put into a lot of different places to do a lot of different things. And that's actually really rewarding and really challenging and outstanding. See what else there is around here that they really want you to know. Not too much. Thing that hasn't been asked by everybody else is all the academies participate in Academy Exchange, where you can do a semester your junior year in exchange, or sophomore year? Or junior, with other academies for a semester. And my daughter had a West Point with her as a roommate last fall. Going to go jump out of airplanes at Air Force, but she chose to row instead for the fall, so she didn't go. And that, yeah, it's real similar. It's wonderful. You don't need the rest of the nomination process, which makes it freeing to have as a second option. It's a lot more sure. One less layer of, and we do also have a summer program called AIM. If you're January of your junior year, you can apply for that, and you'll find out by March, April if you got in for the summer program between junior and senior year. They have my name. Go to the uscga.edu to see everything, and they've got my contact information in the chat.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Chris. I'm going to stop sharing. And like I said before, thank you to all the panelists that spoke. Right now, I'll go over kind of like our process in our office for the congressman. And then, like I said, and then I'll start, if there's any questions that anyone wants to ask, you can start asking them in the Q&A, and I'll start, once I go over like kind of our little piece, I can start kind of helping facilitate those questions. One thing I'm going to share real quick is give me 1 second, is how do I get the application for the Service Academy from the congressman? So if this is our website, so it's phillips.house.gov, and all you have to do is go to services, and you scroll down, you see a Service Academy nomination. And right now it's not, we're still updating it. So, but this is where you're going to find everything. You can download the application here, and it kind of explains to you the time frame for all our, with everything that's going on that's related to our Service Academy nominations process. So with that being said, everyone likes to ask us like, what's the golden you know, how do we get the golden ticket? So from our office, we really recommend students to apply to both senators, district representative. There's a vice president, and then there's also service connected nominations. Like, so if your parents are former, you know, there's Medal of Honor, Purple Heart. So there's a lot of different ways you can submit for a nomination that we as an office recommend, and also I know some of the other panelists that have been interviewed and stuff also recommend that you apply with everyone that you can to give you a better chance of getting selected. The applying to multiple nominations doesn't make you more competitive. It just allows you to compete in more than one slate or category. So, and I know Ken has explained kind of how that works, the process of how when they're looking for a senator's packet and then they look through a representative's packet, you have bigger opportunities to get selected for nomination. And just to give you a little bit of last year's numbers, last year we were requested 26 nominations. 26 candidates applied for nomination, and we were able to give out 25. Out of the 25, 16 were selected to be then accepted to the academies. That doesn't mean that they were all charged to our office, like I said, but it just means that we, like Jeff was saying, Minnesota's 3rd District has a great turnaround, and they are very competitive when it comes to nominations. So how does our office do the nominations? So the congressman can submit 5 constituents for under his slate. Each academy allows him to submit 10 nominations. And out of those 10, out of those 10, one student will get selected. And we do a competitive, which means that we don't rank our candidates. We submit everyone that we nominate, and we let the academies, we let admissions go through, and then they will select who the most competitive person is for admissions. And that's just kind of how we do it. And give me one second. I just want to make sure we don't have any questions that have been unanswered, or if anyone has a question, they can start raising their hands and I can start facilitating. But also, when is our process open? So for us, since this is a different year since the congressman's last year, we are basically moving everything forward. So normally, after we get all the applications and we receive them, we normally process them all, and then you guys have till like December for us to do the interviews. Well, this year is a little bit different because we have to submit everything by December, by the 2nd week of December. So as soon as the application deadline, November 1st, is done, we will do that. We will do the interviews a week after that. So that's the only really thing that's going to change this year. And some of our panelists help us interview. So we have interviewers that have experience, and they've been doing this for a very long time. They've done a lot of interviews for us. Like I said, Ken is one of our interviewers that's been with us for a while. And basically they interview each candidate, and then they give us their recommendations. And then we go over that, and the congressman goes over that, and then we make our final decision. Another thing that I would like to add, I know we always get like the eager parents that are, trying to help the candidates as much as they can, but we do like to let everyone know that's a parent or a guardian, that this is a process that the candidate will probably have to endure by themselves, because we usually just talk directly to the candidate. So when the parent calls me or contacts our office, we try to explain to them like, hey, if the candidate needs assistance with this, they can reach out to us. And it's very independent, and we encourage that, because like I said, when they get to these academies, if they get accepted, they basically they're on their own, and they have to continue on. I saw a question from Anonymous. If interested in Navy ROTC, who is your local contact and what is their contact information? I'm not sure if you have the answer for this.
I just saw the question. I was going to go ahead and grab the link. The best is to start right on the website. I'll put the link right here in the Q&A if that's the best place for it, and others can look at it there.
Thank you for that.
Sound good?
And yeah, thank you. And another thing, I know my colleague, our advocacy director, Taylor Mills, is on the line as well. And then our operations director, May, is also on the line. If you guys or have any questions, or for some reason I'm not in the office, they are two great point of contacts to reach out if you have any questions on what's going on, any key dates. They will have the answers. Also, you could always call our office line. Yes, if you ever have a question, you can call our office line, and then we will be able to answer any questions you guys have. Just like I said, our website will have the most updated thing after we're done. And then, yeah, like I said, if you guys have any other questions for the academies or anyone here, you're more than welcome to raise your hand, and we can start kind of answering some. Any questions? I don't see any right now.
Mark, you should be able to unmute.
Yeah, thank you. Quick question as it relates to the letters of recommendation for Dean Phillips specifically. As I've looked at stuff, it looks like the academies have their own letters of rec, but that's kind of through their portal. Any specific requirements or recommendations on, from a breadth or experience with the candidates? For example, are you looking specifically for teachers? Are you looking for coaches? Those kinds of things for letters of recommendation.
Yeah, I can answer that just because I go through all the packets that come in. We have coaches, we have church, we have it's just anyone that can, there's no specific letter of recommendations that we're looking for. I'm not sure. I know, Ken, you go through them as well, but from our office, there's not like a requirement like, oh, we need one from teachers and coaches. I think you're muted, Ken.
Okay, you hear me now?
Yeah.
I would say have a strategy for your letters. Decide who you're going to use for the academy. Decide who you're going to use for the congressman, and spread them around that way. When it comes to the congressional interviews, since we get a chance to meet with you as a person, ask the questions, I'd say just a community people, a coach, someone that gives a little bit of a perspective like that, but decide who you're going to use. If you have a teacher who was maybe at one of the academies, that might be a real good guy to use to write your academy letter. Those
Sure.
kinds of things.
Yeah, a quick follow-up there. Can we use, given it seemed like one letter was going to go to the congressman and there was going to be separate letters for the academies, I assume we could double up on those as well, Ken, or is there a downside to doing that?
No, I think oftentimes that can work. Just you really decide what it is you're wanting them to put through. Some of the academies will specifically say it has to be a math and an English teacher.
That's right.
All of them want to hear from your counselor, whereas the academy won't be as specific for those. And then if you're also going to apply to ROTC, you want them to focus on why you got to use all those letters in the right way. And as far as preparing, you're going to get an essay. Why do you want to attend an academy, or why would you be a good candidate to receive a nomination? Start working on that essay now. You don't know how many words it has to be, but you can always trim it down. Students can take advantage of this time.
Yeah, hi, this is Jeff.
Makes sense.
I'm
sorry. Go ahead.
One strategy that seems to have helped a number of candidates is they let now West Point does, we do want something from a science teacher, an English teacher, another teacher, counselor. We are no longer asking for letters from PE instructors. But if you're thinking about asking that particular person for a letter of recommendation to the academy, let them know early. Don't surprise them the week before you want to get it in. Talk to, have the candidate the applicant should talk to that person, say, hey, I'm applying to, this academy. They would like a letter of recommendation. I would love to have you write that for me. Would you start considering, what you might say and blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. So kind of let them know early that you're going to be asking for it. Don't surprise them. Let them wordsmith what they write.
That's helpful. Thank you.
And I did see a question about, is this recording going to be posted? It will. And once we get it and edited everything, I will send it to everyone that joined this Zoom call. So I have everyone's emails. I will send that. I will also add in that email the panelists' information, and I will also add the admissions website for each academy that was present today as well. So you guys will have all that. Once the video is ready, everything, I will send it out to everyone that RSVP'd in that Google form. So even if someone didn't make it to actual Zoom link, every email that RSVP will get a copy of this video with all the panelists' information. And like I said, if there's ever a question, our website will be updated within the next 2 weeks, because we're going to change all the dates and everything should be on our website. Any other questions? If any of our panelists want to just give a word of advice, it's that doesn't really have to do with more of the process, not really what the academy can offer for someone. You're more than happy. I know some of our panelists like Jeff, Ken, you guys have been interviewers in the past for us, and I know that you guys might have some insights that might be helpful to anyone, but more than welcome to share.
So yeah, hi, this is Jeff. There's one thing, as part of the process, the academy wants me or someone like me to interview the candidate, and I have a form. I have some topics that I'm supposed to ask, and a lot of them are stereotypical job interview type. Tell me about a time when that sort of thing. And so we're going to, sometime fall of senior year, try to set up an interview with each candidate, and then get that information to the academy, because the folks in the admissions department, all they get to look at is scores, results, or letters written, or that sort of thing. And what they're asking us to do is kind of be yes, I met with this person, and the poise was dramatic. They were very articulate, et cetera, et cetera. So we're kind of the eyes of admissions. And so when and if you get a chance to interview, if you do an interview like that with somebody like me, it's because we're trying to provide a human aspect for the entire application process.
I would add that the application process for these nominations is completely separate than each academy's nomination process. And the Navy checklist, it's got about 10 or 11 things you have to send in. As you send them in, you get the check marks. And we pay attention to, okay, this kid's at 4 things. This kid's at 5. It's time to get the blue gold interview, the interview that Jeff was just talking about, equivalent for us. And so it's as much the application for Lewis doesn't have that you put all together on your own and mail it all in, but it also has about 8 things that it needs with all these different letters of recommendation. Some need them sealed, some need them uploaded. And so you being able to work through this with the discipline of getting all those things in is part of the filter. And if mom and dad are having to do that, you'll get filtered out because it won't get done and we'll be able to see it. But part of you really wanting to do this and getting started on this in August before the school year really gets started, or maybe a fall sport that's taken a lot of your time, is going to be important for being ready to go on this. So that'd be my piece of advice.
And yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And like I said, there is no like I said, secret formula. We get all the packets, but I can look at the portal that you're supposed, like he said, you're supposed to be submitting these things in. And when you're asking for an interview, I will, even though you completed the packet with me, you're not completed with the actual academy that you're applying for. So I will reach out to you and let you know, like, hey, I know you've completed this for me, but in your actual portal for the Navy, West Point, Air Force, or Merchant Marine, your packet is not even, you haven't even started it. So it really shows that either you're not taking the steps to make sure that you're good, or also you're not yeah, you're just not being on top of everything. And sometimes I have to let you know, like, hey, I can't, an interview is for someone that's completed, so just because we get so many and it's very competitive, and a lot of parents are like, oh, how will my my kid, stand out? And I try to explain to them, everyone that walks into this office, when they submit their packet, like their grades are always like great. Everyone's like, it's kind of the same. I always see the same grades, everything. That really separates, I think, the candidates when they do that interview with our panelists, and really how they carry themselves, how that interview goes, because everyone's very competitive because they all are going to great public schools, private schools here, prep schools. So the academic itself, I don't really see it that big of a difference. It's mainly how put together is the packet and everything that they've done to prepare themselves for this interview. And that's what really separates them. When I get the score sheets from our interviewers and they're like, oh, this person was great, this is what separated them and stuff. And like I said, we don't rank them. So it's not like, the candidate was number one overall. But we do, once we nominate, we just let the admissions office, kind of look overview. And then that's when they're going to look, oh, was this student, did he complete? Because I'll just get something, oh, you nominated this candidate, but they have an incomplete packet for us, so it's not going to work. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. If I don't see if there's any other questions, I'm not sure any. Oh,
Uh, Luis, this is Rich Cron. The other thing, and it was mentioned in passing, is if much like if you were doing going to the going to a civilian school, if you will. I mean, you would have a target school, and then you would have a safety school. And it was kind of mentioned in passing that you should apply to as many as you feel comfortable with for the academies. Same thing. I mean, and I know generally when you apply to multiple, you have to sequence, what's your first, second, and third choice. But the goal here is to get the opportunity to serve, and also develop the leadership skills. But it makes sense to it's not that much more work because you're developing all the same documents. It's more, all you have to do is upload them to different portals.
I'd to add one thing to that, and
go ahead, whoever.
For the Coast Guard. The things that my daughter was taught was the Coast Guard loves people that love the Coast Guard. And so if you are specific about one of these academies, fly your flag. Tell them, this is what I want. This is specifically, I'm only Navy, I'm only Coast Guard, and tell them this is what I'm in. I have great desire for this specific thing. And it's not a pejorative to say that I'm going to a lot of different services, because service is noble and all the rest of it. But if you do have that as a thing, definitely fly that flag. It can't hurt. Coast Guard does like it.
I'm going to read off.
Visits are another way to demonstrate interest.
Sorry, go ahead.
Visits are also a very important way to demonstrate interest, and they do care quite a bit.
And I see another question from Anonymous and Danny. What are some positive actions I can take while still in high school? Is there any big green flags that these academies look for? And I will let the panelists kind of answer that, since they kind of would have a better idea.
So this is Jeff. Without making an exhaustive list, grades. I know for West Point, 60% of what is looked at by the admissions folks are your grades, not just your GPA in high school. While that is important, your ACT or SAT scores are very, very important. And we do, like what was mentioned for the Air Force Academy, we do super score. So if you had a bad day in one area, you can go take it again, and the Academy will take the best of all of your scores for any test you take. So the idea is if you're willing to do the work, we're willing to give you credit. So, that's big. The other one, without diving into too much, look for leadership opportunities. If you're in a club, if you're working at a fast food place and you can become a shift leader, if you can become the vice president or president of the robotics club, things like that, boy state, girl state, scouting, whatever you happen to be involved with, seek leadership opportunities, because all of the academies are interested in developing leaders. So somebody who is showing a proclivity, a desire to be in a leadership position, that goes a long way as being a discriminator between yourself and another candidate.
That was very good. I really put the stress on the test scores over the grades, and Jeff mentioned there the standardized test scores as opposed to just the GPA. Also, say get started on that application early. Just because January 31st is the deadline for most academies, no, they've started selecting candidates. The admission boards are meeting already in September. You got to have your stuff in sooner, otherwise you're just not seen as a serious candidate.
I would also say I think the biggest shock is always the big three. It's chemistry, it's calculus, and it's physics. And you're definitely, depends on the curriculum, but you're definitely taking two of those at the same time. And so it's not just taking the course and getting a good grade. It's really learning it, because as the better you are at that, the less pressure you're going to feel from those courses in the freshman year. And it's not there. I did some searches on this because it came up at Kings Point, Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point. 50% of the people that take calculus in college get lower than a C. So it's a challenging, and so when you take it, take it so that when you're facing it again, it's really easy, or much easier when you're taking it during that freshman year, because there's a lot of other pressures that are going on in your life there that you have to figure out how to manage in your time, and you don't want to get buried by one of those courses.
Thank you.
I'd like to second that. It's important to do in high school. You're going to get your transcript sent into the academy. Your guidance counselor is also going to send in the course catalog. Did you take the hardest math possible? Did you take the AP? If they didn't have it, did you take honors? A in an easy class isn't nearly as important as a B in a difficult class. When you get to the academy, you're going to take calculus there. And if you're afraid of it now, if you remember, the West Point schedule was up, and you're taking 5 hard classes plus an athletics thing, maybe something else. You're pulling 18, 20 credits buried. Sophomore year, my daughter was taking multivariable calculus, differential equations at the same time. Get to linger over your math and work through it. So get on it early, take the challenge on, and while you're still in high school and you've got a little bit more time to get with it, teach yourself how to study. It gets only harder the further you get into this.
There's no place to hide. You walk into, and this is, again, I'm ancient, but I was pretty good at that stuff, but they still force you to be better. I'd walk into class and sit down, and it'd say, "Mr. Crom, please go to the board and do problem 7." And then he would critique. He says, "Well, you got the right answer, but you didn't put all the steps in, or your notation's bad on this step." So it's and this is part of the process. This is to steel you for those situations where you're under pressure.
All right,
And
I'm not sure.
Jeff, I was going to say, and we're making it sound horrible, but the one thing I will say about all of the academies is, if you get in, all of the academies have a vested interest in you getting out. If you are accepted, if you're appointed, the admissions department thinks you've got the stuff. And so you will be assigned, or you will have available mentors in departments if you're having an issue in a class, you're going to get the help if you ask for it. So we're making it sound horrible, but there's a reason why there's a 7 to 8 student to instructor ratio there. It's because they want to see you succeed. So we're making it sound like you're walking through a gauntlet getting in there, but there's help available too.
And I think Mark has a question, and then we'll leave this as the last question. If Mark, you have a question.
Yeah, thanks, Louis. I just wanted to see if I heard the numbers right, because the numbers seemed higher than I thought could even be possible. But I hear 26 applied last year, 25, 4 nominations, 25 given, and 16 selected. I guess I thought there were only 5 nominations from each representative or senator, so a max of 15 out of the state, plus VP and other service-connected nominations. Any more insight you can share, Louis, or did I just have my numbers wrong?
No, the numbers are correct. It's just that sometimes there is like weird situations, and this is when it comes to like athletes and stuff like that. So that doesn't mean we were charged every single one of those, candidates. It's just, like I said before, sometimes the academies will reach out to us, the congressional office, like, hey, we have an athlete, or or we have multiple. Sometimes we are given more than one slate. So instead of having just 10, we can nominate 20, if that makes sense. So last year, being that we were kind of in the predicament of that, we were able to nominate 20 for both Navy and Air Force. And like I said, this is not something that we know ahead of time, so it's not like something that we publicize or anything like that. We always just kind of keep everything equal grounds, to keep it as competitive as we can. But like I said, sometimes the academies will reach out to us and let us know, like, hey, you have this. Do you want to use it? I'm not sure if Ken has any.
The only additional comment I would put on is that, yes, the congressman is allowed 5 students at each academy. Well, there's 4 years that they're there. So there's some years where they get to add an extra candidate. I would say that the nomination is a ticket to the front door of the academy. As he said, he doesn't rank you. He says, we give you a nomination. Then the academy decides who they take. If a candidate declines from a different district that was chosen, that the Naval Academy can then decide, okay, we're going to go ahead and take this other kid off of the wait list. And I can tell you, having interviewed in Louis's office for the last several years, this past year of candidates was insane good. And as a result, we got some amazing numbers. But still, Minnesota as a whole is going to have about 13, 14, 15 kids per of the 3 major academies this year coming in. And CD3 just got a big number compared to some of the other parts of the state. And he's also talking about offers. Some of those offers were declined.
Okay.
Also, too, I had one young man who had enlisted in the reserves and had applied, and that can come out of a different pool. So those folks are not counted, bad terminology, but counted against the congressman's nominations.
And there's typically a special allocation for prep schools too that doesn't come out of the allocation. Also, if they go through, and I'm speaking only from what I know at the Merchant Marine Academy, they go through the list. They figure out what the requirements are. Then for all the people that were nominated, they identify, 1, 2, 3, all the way down the list. And if for some reason Minnesota fills their allotment for that time for their slots, but they still have people high on the list. If some of the other states don't fill their allotment, then based on the priority on the list, those people take those spots. So that's how you can get a bigger number, if you will, in a particular year.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And again, I wanted to say thanks to everyone that joined, and obviously thank you to our panelists, as wonderful as you guys are. I know some of you guys will be helping us with the interviews this year again. So I wanted to say appreciate it. So thank everyone, and I hope you guys all have a lovely night.
Good night.
Night.